Hello, everybody, and welcome to another narrator interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I'm your host, Gabriel Garcia, otherwise known as the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill. And joining us today is a narrator making their official debut here on the show, but you may have seen them on my other show, Into the Maze. Now, my guest is a professional and versatile narrator combining a smooth, smoky, and engaging voice with her flair for theatrics. Whether it's impeccable comedic timing in your rom-coms, a gut-wrenching emotional scene, or a spicy slow burn in your romances, or even an action-packed high-stakes game in your fantasies, she has it all. Her passion and attention to detail are what set her above the rest. And when she's not in her recording booth, you can find her spending time at home with her family in a small town in Louisiana. If she isn't wrangling one or all three of her kids, she is most likely at a metalcore concert, grabbing lunch with her friends, or in the kitchen trying to recreate a better version of what she had for lunch with her friends. She's an avid animal lover and has been known to rescue numerous chickens and save several turtles. You can capture her heart with some well-placed witty banter, a long yap session over what book you're reading, and a hot cup of coffee. And I'm so excited to have her here on the show, viewers and listeners. And if you remember from Into the Maze, I also made an announcement that this incredible narrator is also going to be another actor in my upcoming audiobook, Michael, Last Angel of Earth, playing the role as Vanhildr. And with enough said, and I cannot say this enough, she's an incredible narrator among the talent that I've had on the show. Let's give a huge round of applause to today's guest, my good friend, Lauren Beck. Lauren, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Awesome, Lauren. I'm so excited to have you here and to have you on The Wandering Scribe. And if for those who follow Lauren, she's incredible and she's done a lot of projects and she currently has quite a few projects for the rest of the year. Lauren, would you like to share with our viewers and listeners some of the books that you'll be working on for the rest of 2025 and potentially early 2026?
Yeah. So I'm actually getting started on a fantasy called Whispered Curses by Samantha Gradell. It is so beautifully written. I am so excited to get started on it. Later in the year, I have a paranormal romance called Mated to the Monster by Sarah Spade. And then I have a dark romance called Babylon by Alaire Novak that I have coming at the end of the year. So those are the three that I'm highly anticipating and super excited about for the rest of the year.
Nice. I cannot wait to see when those books come out, and I can't wait to hear your performances. And it's honestly so incredible to have you narrators on my show, because I love learning about, the little nuances of how you begin your performances and how you guys get into the headscape of these characters, or sometimes multiple characters. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit more about you, Lauren. So for those that have not seen Lauren's interview on Into the Maze for Audio Maze, Lauren, would you like to share with our viewers and listeners how you got into the world of narration, and do you have a specific aha moment that you would like to share?
Yeah, I think getting started was just a lot of delusion and the stars aligning. At the time, I was listening to a ton of audiobooks, and I had this fleeting thought about how to get into it, and then it kind of went away. And then I was doom scrolling one time on TikTok and saw a narrator live narrating, and when I realized it, I was like, oh my god, I could that I that's amazing. So I followed this person for a really long time, and I don't know, I somehow stumbled upon other narrators, and I just started doing my research. And the next thing you know, I found someone to mentor me. And from there, a month later, really, I got my first project, and it hasn't stopped. I think
Nice.
my aha moment, you mean for just getting started, when I thought I could do it?
Yes. Do you have a specific aha moment that really made you realize I could do this? I could see myself doing this as a career.
Yeah. So I've been a stay-at-home mom for a while. And so during my research, there's this like not necessarily a criteria, but a list of things that is suggested. Like, can you sit in a little tiny closet for hours on end? Can you read out loud for long periods of time? Do you have an acting background? And I'm over here checking off the list, right? And when I realized that I would be taking two of my favorite things, which is performing arts and reading, and slapping it together, and really once I had confirmation from my mentor at the time that, I really might be able to do this. I was pretty much full steam ahead from there. I mean, I just like took a leap of faith, and what was the worst that could happen? People didn't like my voice, and then I could just, maybe try and find something else. But no, that was my moment, was when I realized that it was my two favorite things, and I met the criteria, I guess you could say.
Nice. Very, very nice. It's amazing. And that's an amazing story to hear and to share. So now jumping forward into your career. So when you began working with your very first authors or group of authors, what was sort of like the books you want to work on first? Because I know talking with a lot of narrators, and also, as you mentioned in your first interview on the other podcast, that narrators who begin this journey typically look for books to work with if those are the books that they enjoy reading themselves.
Yeah.
So the books that you worked on, were they around the same kind of genre that you typically read, or were they outside of your genre?
I think especially when you first start, it's important to find books that interest you, because in that way you can really fall into the characters a lot easier. The emotion in your voice really comes out when you're into the story. So finding, like for me, I love romance books. I love fantasy. My first ever book was a 10-hour or a 12-hour fantasy book. And there were trolls in it, and there were kings in it, right? Like, I mean, there were so many different characters. And so I really got to play around with my range just from the first book, and really see, like, gauge where I was at and what I needed to focus on or work on going forward. I think it's definitely important to start with what you like and what you know. And then once you have a really solid grasp on that, then you can branch out to different genres and see.
Nice. Very, very nice. So now let's focus on going into the recording booth, a day in the life, so to speak. And there's actually a good fan question, which is a very special one because I haven't gotten this before on any of my previous episodes. And one of my viewers asked, which is a really cool one, they ask, Lauren, when you're playing a character, do you take any inspiration from movies or actors, i.e., if a character is sounding like, wow, this is a really old character like Deborah Carr or Douglas Fairbanks Jr., so to speak, do you research them in terms of like how they speak or how they act to get you an idea of a specific character that may or may not have been inspired by those types of actors or the characters they've played?
100%. So I let the authors tell me what their characters sound like, what the vision they had when they were writing in their head, right? And so, like, for Whispered Curses, her male main character sounds like a specific anime character. And so when she told me that, I had her send me the link for this specific anime so that I can sit there and watch it and really absorb the way this character sound and his mannerisms, so that I can try and emulate that in my own narration. And obviously it's not going to be perfect, right? But at least trying to pick out those little nuances and those little details, those are the things that really bring your character to life. And so I do, when I have an author, I ask them, like, send me pronunciations, but also if you have a specific character quality that comes from a show or a movie or whatever, send that to me so I can let me take a look. Let me see where your head was at for this character so that I can try and bring that to life the way you want.
Very nice. Very, very nice. And kind of along the same lines. So as you mentioned earlier, that there was a narrator that you follow and you were very, very entranced by them. Now in your career, are there any other role model narrators that you love to follow and learn from to help build upon your own skills and improve upon?
It's funny. Yes, but I wouldn't say there's one specific narrator. I
Oh,
think the beauty of this industry is that you can take inspiration and you can, from everybody. Everybody has something different to offer. And I really admire a lot of the people in this space. And you can learn a lot about how to do something, or, maybe a different way to portray a character, right? Like there's so many things that you can learn from the people that you work with.
mhm.
So I wouldn't say that there's one specific that I look up to, but as a collective, I am just fascinated with everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also, as you mentioned before, as a stay-at-home mom, balancing both schedules can be very, very intimidating. So for you, how have you, I should say, what ritual or rather schedule have you developed that really helps you balance both sides of who you are?
Yeah, rough. uh, so I work during the day when my kids are in school, or I'm working overnight. Those are my two quiet times. So when all of my kids are at school, I drop them off, I come home, I do my little routine to get ready, I grab my coffee and head to the booth. And then I'll go for as long as I can. And then I'll try, if I have the stamina overnight, then I'll try and keep going until maybe like 1 or 2, so I can at least sleep a little bit. But and then the weekends, I just kind of chalk it up to a loss. Sometimes I get lucky and I'll get to work during the day, but not very often.
Nice, nice. And this fan question. This person has been watching my previous narrator interviews and they really, really thought of this question. And it's actually a pretty fun one. So this viewer asked, Lauren, can you walk us through how you built your recording booth? And they also asked, what part of the house is your recording booth? Is it a closet or another room or something else?
Yep. Yep. So my booth is in my master closet, which happens, thankfully, to be in the very middle of the house. So what I did is I pulled pretty much everything out of my closet, and I put my desk. I brought this desk all the way to the back. I have sound panels on the walls. I have them on the ceiling, and I have everything wrapped in blankets. I have a desk here. I have outlets already over here. I have shelving already here. So, yeah, I left all of my clothes. So behind here, I have all of my clothes and everything is still there to help absorb sound. And I'll tell you what, it works. It's solid. It's a solid little booth. And I love it. It's cozy. I'm sweating, but in the winter, it's really lovely.
Nice. Absolutely love it, Lauren. Absolutely. So now going forward, so when you began working with your first set of authors, and then as that progressed down the road, ultimately getting a feeling of the type of narrator you wanted to be, what is sort of the need or desire you wanted to satisfy with your clients? And ultimately, what is the promise you're making to not just them, but also their readers?
At the end of the day, my job is to give my author the best product I can. I take the story, I take the notes that they've given me, I read the story, and I really try to bring it to life. Um, that is my goal every time, is the journey that I am taken on when I read the book. I want to elevate that journey by narrating it. And so my goal is for the author and the listeners to really kind of forget where they are for a little while. Yeah, that's it.
Nice, great, incredible. So, after getting a feeling and doing so many narrations, either as just the main narrator or possibly playing one of the characters or group of characters, ultimately, what has been the feedback like from not only authors but also friends and family that have heard your voice acting talent?
It's funny because the last interview that we did together, I was like, I'll never read reviews. Let me tell you something. I
Oh,
read them all the time. I take it back. I lied. Once I started really getting reviews, I started reading them. Um, at the time, it was like, the reviews are for the listeners. They're none of my business. And I still think that's true. However, in reading reviews, I think you can get a lot of good feedback, right? If you're seeing the
mm,
same thing over and over, that's something that you can take with you and learn from. If you
right.
have, but I think it also takes a thick skin. Um,
Mm-hmm.
in my review, right? In my review of reviews, thankfully, luckily, I haven't had any. I haven't had anything that has been negative. I've had really solid reviews. Um, just from looking at Audible reviews, and then because I'm a very emotional person, so
Mm,
I can really convey some emotion in a story. So like those gut punch books, um, I do pretty well in. As for my friends and family, um, well, not really my family. They're pretty much forbidden from reading most of my books. However, my friends who have read them, they really like my mask voice. I have like a deeper voice. Um, they've they've really enjoyed my books too, which is good because a lot of those books, or some of them, I should say, are kind of out of the realm of what my friends read, and so the fact that they'd support me like that is really cool. But so far, so good. Knock on wood. I hope it stays that way.
that's awesome. That's great to hear that you have, a great community, friends, family that are very supportive of you, and that's very, very amazing to hear. Now, there's actually a question I want to ask you that I haven't asked, and I want to say 4 years. This is one of my original questions. And this question is, has your promise to your clients been validated? Example, the feedback you received that has been delivered met your author's expectations and they realize that you are a person of your word.
As far as I know, yes. Based on the crying videos I get when they listen back, like for review, yes. I those are my favorite text messages to get. When I get an author who sends me a crying picture, uh yeah, love those. As far as I know, so far, yes. Everybody seems to be very pleased with their audiobooks. That is that is the common goal. Is for me to be able to give them a product that they're proud of. And so far, so good.
Absolutely. I mean, working with you guys and the snippets that I have heard, I mean, you guys really go to town, and I cannot wait to work with you guys fully next year with all those projects that I have laid out, which I am so very, very excited. And now a very personal question, kind of a similar one that I've asked you on the previous show, which is, just like authors, you narrators also have days where you may get burned out, or you don't want to narrate at all, or you're just frustrated of you can't really get the pacing right, or the character voice is not really sticking, and it's just a mess. Ultimately, how do you handle, Lauren, the dreaded narrator's block?
Yeah, taking breaks. That is when I know that it is time for me to take a break, when every other word out of my mouth is just a jumbled mess, when it's like a word salad. That's my cue to take a step back, take a walk, go get something to eat, maybe even like come back the next day and try again, get in a better headspace. Because honestly, if you're not in the right headspace when it comes to narrating, it shows in your performance. Like if you have something on your mind, it's sometimes the narration can become flat, right? If you're
Yes.
not all into the story, you can tell. And so for those times, which they happen, you can tell, like when somebody gets really frustrated, uh it's the worst because you want to do good, you want to get this done, you have a deadline, and sometimes it's just not in the cards for you that day. I think the best thing you can do is take a break, come back to it, and
Very true.
yeah.
Yes, take a break, take a step back, and definitely reflect on, what could have been better, what could have been, done differently. And that actually goes into a question that I actually was talking with an author, but I wonder if it also applies to narrators. Now, context for this question, I was talking with a good friend of mine, a fellow member of the Automation family, Kaylee Robinson. We were talking about stories, and she actually pointed out something which is pretty cool, which is if there is something that she is working on or that she's seeing outside of her sphere, like she doesn't read because she doesn't want it to influence her own writing or something along those lines, in the essence that it didn't want to contradict what she's already working on, even though like, oh, this may be a cool idea. It's like, nope, don't want to do that. I wonder if that's the same thing for you, Lauren, as a narrator. Let's say you already have a voice for said character, you've already put in the work, and just let's say during the moments of like taking a break or taking space, you hear a voice either from a TV or a video game, and it's like, oh wow, that voice is really good. But now you're conflicted. Do you go back and scrap everything and do a whole new recording, or do you stick with the current voice that you've worked tirelessly to perfect?
Stick with it. What I do when I hear a voice that I'm like, oh man, that would have been a killer old man voice, right?
Mm-hmm.
I will like take snippets. I have like snippets of videos in my phone of voices that I like, right? Like cartoons or whatever, so that I can try and emulate that later. I'll save that for a rainy day. I'll pocket that for maybe another old man. But I feel like I try really hard not to get into that headspace where I pick apart my own creative decisions, because if you do that, you'll never finish your project. You know,
Right.
like I kind of, and have I done it? Yes. Where I've heard something where I'm like, that would have been a perfect XYZ. But I never take that and be like, oh gosh, let me just start all the way over. That will drive you crazy. So all I do is I take that, whatever voice that is, and I save it for a rainy day, and I can apply that to the next character that may have similar tonal qualities.
Nice. Amazing one. And kind of on the lines, I'm not going to ask you a question from the previous interview, but going to be a little bit different. So as opposed to scenes or moments, this one's going to talk about character voices. So in your career, what's probably been the easiest voice to perfect and your favorite voice to work with and play around with? And secondly, what has probably been, out of all the books you've narrated, the most challenging voice or character type to play?
Okay. The easiest characters for me to play are just your female main character. I can be a female main character, especially with just my regular voice. I can do the best friend. You know, like there's like narrators, we kind of do this. It's like it's like a rule of three, I guess you could say. I don't really know what the name of it would be, but like for really long books, for the female main character, I have my regular voice. And then for a best friend, she has like a higher, maybe like Valley Girl type of voice. And then you have like, you know, the sassier best friend who's a little slower and maybe a little deeper and definitely a lot sassier, right? So like you have range. Um, the female main characters for me, I really enjoy sassy characters. Those are my favorite ones to play. I love a difficult character in terms of like attitude. But the hardest characters are the big alien or monster or dragon shifters who have this deep voice and they have really long chapters. That takes a toll on my voice. I typically have to rest my voice for days after those really long narrator sessions or recording sessions with the very deep, gruff MMCs. But out of all the characters I've done so far, there have been a couple and they're in fantasy books. I have one specific character in my head that I can think of. And it was with a recent fantasy book that I did. And it was like this serpent king. And so I elongated all of my S's to sound like
Ooh.
a snake when he would speak. And it was so fun to be able to play this. Like, you do you hear that? Like, oh God, I don't know, like just that elongated S sound
Yes.
like a snake. I had so much fun being these really, I don't want to say out of pocket, but like just these different characters that you don't even see in real life, right? Like,
Supernatural,
thank
like
you.
fiction, like very like heavy fantasy based characters.
Yes, yes, I love that. I've played, I've done like troll. I've done like a troll. I've done like serpent type stuff. There was one, I wouldn't call it a character, but it was just like a creature that had like this very creaky voice, and it just screeched all the time. That was fun, right? Like
Mm.
just noises that no regular adult gets to make on a daily basis. I love those. I think it's great.
Nice, amazing, Lauren. That's really, really cool. And I know the type of voice you're saying when it comes to that snake character. Now, for any fans who, I'm gonna go on a little tangent here, but gonna bring it back. For any fans who have grown up watching the Redwall series, there's a character in that series called Asmodeus, giant snake. And if you listen to Asmodeus's voice, it's very much similar to what Lauren is talking about, like the elongated S's in his name, like Asmodeus.
Yes, just
That
like that.
long S sound.
Yep.
Yeah, very, very true. That's amazing, Lauren. That is incredible. And I imagine it probably took a lot of trial and error to really get those character voices right. And sometimes going back to, again, the narrator blocks of like getting frustrated with said voices and trying to get it right. And with all that said, that now segues perfectly into the introduction to the business side of being a narrator. So, as little icebreaker questions, we now look at some of the reflective parts. So, the first one is, of course, what does it mean to be a narrator in the digital age? Because the industry has changed within the last 20 years. And I love asking narrators this question because it's a really thought-provoking one. Because if you look back in the history of audiobooks, most audiobooks from like the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and even still now, you have actors from Broadway, professional voice actors, theater actors, and more, like a whole production team of classically trained performers and actors giving it their all. And now you see, to word this as best I can, you have those that are not classically trained, that have not gone to school, but still do the work, still do the research and the time. They are very passionate about it and performing their crafts on their own as independent narrators. And that can be very daunting because when we, and by we, I mean independent creators, perform, or I should say, showcase our talents, it's a double-edged sword when it comes to social media. Because on one end, we're able to reach new people, get our fans, establish our platform. On the other side, we leave ourselves exposed to all the negativity, and social media is draining. It can emotionally and psychologically drain you. And unfortunately, in some cases, social media is not very nice. It is probably the one place that is, among many places in the digital world, very, very destructive depending on where you're at. And that could definitely throw a monkey wrench into a creative person's drive to continue. So ultimately, Lauren, with that said, what has disciplined you to be the best narrator you can be, to go the extra mile? And looking back, is there anything you would have done differently in terms of promoting yourself and creating your brand?
No, no, I think that my time as a narrator came at the perfect time. Talking about the digital age, as these narrators from the beginning, right, so to speak,
Mhm.
who are classically trained, who have the acting background, who have a following already. They don't need social media to promote themselves. Social media now is such an important tool, but you're right. It's a daunting, scary place. It absolutely
Mhm.
can be. But on the flip side, the the amount of support that you can find, the amount of jobs that you can find, the networking, I have found I credit a lot of my success to social media because I'm able to reach a broader audience that way, right? That I otherwise wouldn't have gotten. And I think in any acting business, in any creative space where you put yourself out there unapologetically also, right? Because you have to, there has to be a level of authenticity in everything that you do if you want to be successful. And I think that in doing so, you do open yourself up to criticism. You do open yourself up to negative reviews. You do open yourself up to getting your feelings hurt. And I think taking care of your mental health is the best thing that you can do in that situation. Whether it's not reading reviews, whether it's staying off of social media, right? Like those things, you can combat those if need be. But I do think at the same time, on the other side of the coin, that it is a really important tool in order to get your name out there. I don't remember the other half of your question.
No problem, no problem. But I think you may have mentioned it in the beginning, and that is looking back on your career thus far. Is there anything you would have done differently in terms of promoting or, promoting yourself or establishing your brand?
Only that I wish I would have done it sooner. I think,
Mm,
I think in the year of the pandemic, when
mm,
everything had shifted to an online world, that probably would have been like the time, right? Because that is when everybody is really discovering themselves. But other than that, no. I feel I am right where I'm supposed to be. I feel like the amount of success that I have reached thus far, I think I'm just scratching the surface, but I'm enjoying the ride. I don't want to burn myself out like we talked about earlier.
right.
I really just want to enjoy each milestone as they come. Um, and yeah, my only complaint is that I didn't start sooner.
Very true. Very, very true. And funny enough, that talk about, the pandemic and the lockdown leads to the next question. And context for this, I don't know if I've mentioned on the previous show. I've been doing this show now from YouTube and Spotify in total 6, almost 7 years, which is
Wow.
absolutely insane. Initially, it just started off as authors, but as I branched out and getting more people, it's insane. Looking back, I think I have 429 videos, breaking that down, 189 authors, 35 academics, 55 what was it, comic interviews, and I think 15 industry reviews, which encapsulates editors, narrators, publishers, and more. It's insane.
Wow.
And
Congratulations.
thank you, thank you.
Amazing.
And when I was talking with a majority of all of these incredible people, first off, I've learned so much from all of them, especially narrators and editors, the other aspects of the publishing industry, which has been a huge dream. And when talking with these people and more, I realized that a majority of us began our careers during the lockdowns, during the pandemic. And this has sparked a debate that I've been seeing amongst, the inner circles that I've been a part of whether or not the COVID years, the lockdown years, have birthed a golden age. Because one could argue that because of the lockdown, it became a breeding ground, a pool of new voices, new talent in every creative industry. And when the floodgates opened, it just changed the world forever. Well, the lockdown already changed the world, like no question about it. But when we look at the industry itself, you had new writers, you had artists, you had editors, and you had narrators. And it just took the publishing world by storm. And I absolutely love it. But after 5 years have passed and taking a really hard look of the industry now, there's been a shift of not a golden age, but more so of an iron and new age. And the reasoning for that is those 5 years allowed the industry to really regain its footing and kind of, for lack of better term, shuffle or shimmy those that are passionate about the respective fields in the different aspects of the industry and those that simply joined it to get a quick buck or to make some fast money, which we'll talk about later, as that is. All that said, this has sparked a conversation of, are we in either or, especially of course now with AI playing a much bigger role in the publishing world than it was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And give like an example for that, any of us have seen Google Arial or something along those lines, and how you can type something in and boom, all the information pops up. 5 years ago, that was not the case. And in 5 years, AI has just exploded and taken over the industry in every facet. So pulling everything back in, Lauren, I would love to hear your thoughts on this as a narrator and just as a creative person in general, if we are still in a golden age, so to speak, or if we're more so leaning towards an iron age / new age, or possibly option 3, we are in the middle.
You know, I think there's room for everyone at the top. I don't think that when the floodgates opened, I think because there's a voice for everybody, I think that there will always be enough room for new narrators or new creative people in this space. However, you're right. I think that a lot of people drastically underestimated the amount of work that goes into being a narrator, being a writer, et cetera, thinking that it is a get rich quick scheme because all you need to do is speak into a microphone. And because of that, it has saturated the market, I think, in a way that maybe people have never seen before. I think because I'm so new, I can't really speak much more on it other than to say that I was one of the ones that knew what it took, knew it was a marathon, not a sprint, and went for it anyway. But I can speak on the AI thing. And I think that it's important that human voices continue, right, to saturate the market, to filter out the AI noise, so to speak. I think there's a lot of people who are realizing the damage that AI creates when utilizing it in creative spaces. I think people are waking up to the fact that, like, wait a minute, this isn't what I paid for, right? Like there's no emotion in this. Like, yeah, it's cheap, but not only did you lose out on the emotional impact of your book, but you really also, don't quote me on it, but I think there was something about rights. Like once you sign your book to AI, it's copyright and you can't even re-record it. So like, it's not good. It's not good. And it is taking the world by storm in a really terrifying way. Yes. Yeah.
It is very, very true. And I know a lot of people have heard me talk about this thoughts of, AI being used from an author's perspective. And I definitely agree with you when it comes to creating something. It is human voices, human talent first. That's not to say, and now I'm looking at AI is in this gray area, depending on how you use it, because it can be used as a very beneficial tool. For me as an author, I use it as a tool to refine my outlines, refine my character bios, and refine my synopsises. I use that for that. It's still my work, but I use it to help refine it. I don't use it to create something automatically new. When it comes to my own stories, that is me and my editor. We definitely put in the hard work. Now, I would like to hear your thoughts on this example, Lauren, because I was seeing this. I don't know where I saw it, but I was seeing it from another narrator who was talking about this and an interesting way of how they have used AI. Now, from what I remember seeing in this video, this person was a part of a production team for this book. The difference was the author was still in the process of getting the other narrators to already join. And unfortunately, this person already started recording their lines. And they want to know, like, okay, if this person's supposed to be this, or they're not here yet, and I have to say it sounded like this, how do I make it sound authentic and not like, oh, I'm reading just from the book and trying to enact some emotion? They did something that was very interesting. So they took an AI program software, voice generator, whatever, and they played it for like, okay, I need a heroic voice for this type of character in their recording booth. So that way the AI would read the lines of the other character, and then that person would be in the mindset like, okay, I now know how to sound, I now know what to sound like. And they did that, so they got in the right headspace. I would like to hear your thoughts on this, of whether or not this could be a good tool, and I use that term loosely, for narrators, especially if they're in part of production, or if that is playing with fire a bit.
Oh yeah, it's playing with fire. Yeah. I think that there's always going to be more to it than that. It's never going to be just like a reading out the lines type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, but that you can read the lines, right? An AI voice, even if it's like you can read a heroic voice in your head, right? Or you can
Right.
like the AI is not going to parrot back what the other narrator sounds like, right? So it's almost like a moot point at that point, because like if it's reading to you in a heroic voice, it's still not going to sound like your co-narrator.
That's true.
So it's
That is very
literally
true.
you can hear your co-narrator better than the AI can. So to me, it doesn't make sense. I feel like it's certainly playing with fire, and something I definitely, from where I'm standing, wouldn't recommend. You know, there's narrators, or as a narrator, we have enough information in the storyline to know where the emotion is coming from, to have an emotionally charged conversation, even if that person isn't standing in front of you. You know, like that's the beauty of narrating, is and being able to portray the storyline and the characters, is that you can read it and know what is going on, and kind of anticipate a little bit how your co-narrator is going to respond, right?
Right.
Based on the writing and the story. I think the AI it's unnecessary in that.
That is true. That is very, very true. And so now we get into the business side of being a narrator. So here's the first question for this part of the interview, Lauren. So after establishing, your presence, your platform as a narrator, knowing the books that you want to narrate, when it came down to being the businesswoman, the business mindset, how much research, again, did you look into, of like how to establish, a brand, a website, a portfolio, so people who wanted to work with you could get a sense of who you are? And did you talk with other narrators to, learn what they had done, and again, apply it to yourself?
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to build a brand when you're just getting started, because you really don't know what you're good at yet, right? Like some voices may be like really, really fantasy heavy, or might be better for romance or whatever it is. And so I think gaining some experience, seeing what you like, seeing where you get good feedback and what you're good at, also plays a role in how you market yourself. I looked at some of my friends' websites and how they designed their websites. I have a friend who was really creative, and she also helped me. She made my logo for me. She made stickers for me for an event that I just attended. And so, and she knows me on a really personal level. So she was able to take almost like my style and apply it into a logo for me.
Mm.
Right. And then from there, I was able to kind of build upon it, like just go from there. And so then I went ahead and made a website, and then you put your samples on your website to kind of showcase your talent.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously a bio and photos or whatever it is. And you go from there. Yeah. I think it's important to take inspiration from the people around you, and then cultivate that to yourself. Right. I think that's the point, is that we
Yes,
all offer some kind of inspiration.
very true. And on the topic of fellow narrators, are there any names you would like to give a personal shout out to who have helped you on your journey? I think I know a few because for those who don't know, the narration community is a very tight community, just like the author community. And almost all the narrators that I've had on the show thus far, viewers and listeners, everybody knows everybody.
Yeah, it's true. Like we are a tight knit bunch. Um, I'll just say like shout out to my NCX group because everybody's in it.
All right. And on the topic of narrators and other narrators specifically, are there any narrators that you admire in terms of, how they built their brand or how they've approached themselves professionally in the industry, and also those that have developed a wide range, a repertoire of diverse characters that they have worked on throughout their career?
Yes. I without I without saying names, I think I think you can really and truly look at any narrator and kind of see where they started and see where they're at now and really see how they've developed over time. And I think what I admire the most is the perseverance behind it.
Mm,
There's a lot that goes into audiobook narrating that people don't realize. And especially if you don't have the acting background or if you don't have the classically trained stuff, it's a lot harder to get started. And so I really admire the ones who power through, who
mhm.
take feedback and learn from it, and who apply it in a different way, and continuously try to level up, which is most of the, at least in my circles, that's us, right? And we all want
Yes.
to see each other win. So it's a constant. You don't see a lot of fighting, right? Or gatekeeping. Everybody is constantly wanting to see each other win. And so they offer support, or they offer help, or they offer casting calls. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's a really cool place to be. There's not one specific person I can admire, because this industry as a whole is something I've never experienced in a workplace. And it's the only place I want to be because of it.
Nice. Very, very nice. And we're almost to the end of this incredible narrator interview. So I have a few last questions. Now, this one, ooh, actually, I'm going to see that one towards the very end because I really liked it. It's a very old question.
Okay.
But the question that I did want to ask you, Lauren, is as a narrator and as a businesswoman, who is your ideal client in terms of authors working with and possibly companies to work with, whether it's doing like narration for like a promo or something like that? And how well do you know them? And to get some context for that, to help, as authors, we also write to our target audience, but sometimes our target readership. And sometimes it's either or. So with that mindset, who are your ideal clients, and do you know them well enough after establishing again who you are?
So my ideal author is someone who shares a common goal with me of working together to build a product that is something we are both proud of. I love working with authors who are really open-minded, but also who know what they want, right?
Mm,
There's like a really nice middle ground when you meet an author who wants you to have the creative freedom, but still can give you the like an idea of each character. And I really love that, because it gives you it. I find that the performance becomes really authentic when you have a little more creative freedom versus like a very like down the line type of uh I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but like when you have a character and it has like all of these criteria, it almost puts you in a box a little bit.
mhm.
So having a little bit of creative freedom goes a long way. I would say I end up being friends with the majority of my authors by the end of it. I am in constant contact with my authors. I like to keep them updated on where I'm at, what I'm doing. If I have questions, I like to promote them on social media. I try to shout them out when I can. And likewise, they do it for me as well. So we end up developing a really solid working relationship that sometimes bleeds over into friendship, which I love, truly.
That is amazing to hear, Lauren. That is absolutely incredible. And this next question, which I think is really important, is almost like authors, we find this fine line of showcasing our talent or individuality, but understanding if we're writing in a certain genre, there is an expectation. And I imagine the same thing for narrators. Like if you're narrating a high epic fantasy, readers are expecting a certain type of voice, but you don't want to be like the market style epic fantasy voice. You want to showcase who you are as a narrator. You want to have that little twist on it, but not too big of a twist where it throws the reader off. It's this balancing act, which can be, again, very frustrating. So for you, Lauren, how have you been able to showcase your individuality while in every book of a different genre that you've been a part of, staying true to that genre and that style of writing?
I try not to read too much into it. So if I'm reading a romance novel, I can expect that there's going to be a level of emotion, right? Where with a fantasy book, I can expect more level of action. And so I kind of take that and go with that. So I let the story tell me the appropriate amount of nuance that goes on in the book. And so in that way, by not overthinking it, I think that's how I stay true to myself. I know my limits as a narrator. I know the accents that I can and cannot do. So like I'm not going to audition, or I'm not going to agree to do an epic fantasy novel that has tons of different accents that I don't know how to do, especially if it's like, if I need to narrate the whole book in a certain, I don't know, like in a Scottish accent. I am not strong enough in my Scottish yet to do a whole book. Have I done Scottish characters? For sure. And it's very difficult. But I know my limits, and that's another way to curb the narrator's block, and also to stay true to who I am, is allowing myself my limits, being okay with that, and knowing that I can work towards more in the future. And so I meet myself right where I need to be.
Absolutely. And now we get to probably the big question as we build up towards, and that is, of course, the financial aspect of being a narrator. Now, I haven't talked about this question in a very, very long time, but I think it's really important to really talk about this. And the context behind it is that whether you're an author, editor, narrator, or a graphic designer or artist, whatever creative outlet you are in the publishing industry, there are two paths: to be this and to be known as this. Two very different mindsets, but they lead to the same goal. But the harsh truth of the reality is either one of those is not going to be an overnight guarantee or a resounding success. There are going to be hurdles. There are going to be trials along the way, as there should be. But you have to understand that each one of those is, yes, you do have more creative control, but it's all on you. The financial burden, buying everything, supplies, stuff. As Lauren has mentioned throughout the interview, like she had to build her own recording studio, like finding the right microphone, finding everything that worked best, probably a software, everything. That takes a lot of time, money, and research. And sometimes it can be very deflating to believe that there is no guarantee that whatever project that you're working on is going to be the start of your legacy. And that's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
But even with that said, it should be seen as a learning curve, a learning growth, because in this industry, we only get better as time goes on. So, Lauren, I would like to hear your thoughts on this, and also provide your own experiences of some of the trials and hurdles that you've encountered along the way, finding your footing. Again, some moments that probably were deflating for you as first-time narrator in the beginning up till now?
Yeah. As far as the hurdles go, I think that as when you start out, so I'm sure, if you're an author, which I know you're an author, so you know what I'm talking about, but for
Mhm.
anybody who's like tuning in, there are certain models that we can go by in terms of audiobooks and authors. And so like we have royalty share models, we have royalty share plus models, and then we also have
Mhm.
per finished hour, which is where you're paid a certain money, a certain um, price per finished hour. And what people don't realize is that per one finished hour takes about I don't know, 4 hours, right? So you're doing 4 hours of work, but getting paid for 1 hour. And a lot of people don't realize the crazy amount of work that goes into producing and mixing and mastering an audiobook when the recording half is finished. I think the hurdle in the beginning was really learning the software. It was really learning how to edit my book, my audiobook, my recordings in a way that was going to sound really nicely put together without sounding too compressed
Mm.
or as if I had too many like filters on top of it, right? Because you want to
Right.
sound natural. And so I remember in the beginning, that was hard. There's a lot of research that goes into trying to get your voice to sound really nice without over compressing it and making it sound like it's not you. Because you have to do that in order to get it to a certain, audible specs, right? So you have to apply a lot of effects in order to get it sounding a certain way for audible. What else? I don't know. That was really difficult. Understanding the setup, understanding the mic placement, understanding breathing techniques. Where to breathe is something people don't really think about. I think people were I remember in the beginning, more worried about how my breath sounded on my recordings. And as I have gained experience, I'm not really worried about it anymore. I'm not trying to take out breaths anymore because that is what
Mm.
makes you human. And that at this point is one of the most important parts of the journey is being human, especially in the digital age.
Yes, very true. And finally, Lauren, to cap this amazing narrator interview to an end, here are the final two questions, which I'm going to combine together. With everything you have learned in your career, what do you want people, again, to take away from your performance? And finally, again, with everything that you've learned in the industry, what is your word of wisdom to other narrators, aspiring voice actors who want to begin a career in the industry of narration?
So the final takeaway is my goal as a narrator is to take you on a journey. And so I hope that any listener that encounters my books, I hope that they get a little break from reality for a little bit. Um, and I hope that I don't know. I hope that they like the performance. I hope they feel the performance. That's really important to me is to feel it. I think reading a story and listening to it are two very different things, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
so if you can fall into the storyline from a narrator perspective, or listening to a narrator, that's something special. And for anybody who is new who wants to get started, my advice is to take the leap of faith. There's room for everyone at the top. It's a marathon, not a sprint. But if you want it badly enough, it's yours.
Awesome. And with that, viewers and listeners, we conclude this incredible narrator interview with my good friend, Lauren Beck. Now, before we officially end, viewers and listeners, again, a huge thank you to Lauren Beck for coming on the show, making her second appearance on my podcast and the first appearance on the Wandering Scribe show. Now, Lauren, where can people find you on social media if they wanted to reach out? And are there any books, as you mentioned before, that are coming out later this year? And if authors wanted to reach out and possibly discuss with you being a narrator for their upcoming books, do you have a form people can fill out?
Yes. So if you want to reach out to me on social media, my handle is at Lauren Beck Narrator across all platforms. I have a website, www.laurenbeckvoice.com. I also have a link tree that has a narrator inquiry form that you can fill out if you're interested in working with me. And the books that I have coming out, oh Lord, okay. I have Jewel of the Dragon Prince, which is a dragon shifter fantasy book that should be coming out any day now. I have The Daughters of Exile, which is an alien romance book.
Okay.
I am currently finishing up the edits on that one, and then I start recording Whispered Curses, the fantasy book that I told you about earlier. That will be, I start recording that today. And then I have a paranormal romance and a dark prison romance that will be out later in the year.
Nice. Very, very nice. I will link all that down below in the description of this video. And also, if you'd like to check out Lauren's other performances and upcoming stories for Audio Maze, I will also link the website down here below. And when Audio Maze the interviews are up, definitely go and check it out. It was an incredible time having Lauren on that show. Incredible. And again, viewers and listeners, thank you so much for joining us for another amazing narrator interview. A huge thank you to my friend Lauren Beck, who, as I mentioned before, is going to be the voice of Vanhildr in the audio drama Michael, Last Angel of Earth, and possibly one of the villains in my next story, the samurai epic, The Failed Quest. So be on the lookout for that, as well as casting calls for a few short stories which I have planned, and 2 fan fictions which Lauren and a group of narrators who you've all seen on the show working together to bring those stories to life. So make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to stay up to date with all that and more. And until next time, there's the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill signing out. Wish you all a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. And we'll see you all next time.